Okay. Good evening and welcome. We have a good sized group tonight. In fact, we are probably at limit, so I'm not going to wait too long to get my intro out of the way so that we can get everybody started here. I'm Nancy, and if you notice me looking off to the side, I'm just watching the waiting room on a different screen. So I apologize if I seem distracted. I'm going to real quick here go ahead and share. We have a few slides to start us off. So I'm going to go ahead and get those pulled up before we begin. Hopefully you should all be able to see them in just a minute. There you go. Again, welcome. I am Nancy Williams. I actually go by Nan, and I work for ACHE. I'm in the Chicagoland area. I am actually working from a home office today. I'm not in the city today, but I'd like to welcome you to, hang on one sec, I shut that off and it didn't work. I'd like to welcome you to the Healthcare Leaders of New York chapters event tonight, Administrative Fellowships 101. Again, like I said, we have a really good sized group tonight. So I want to make sure you realize that in the chat, if you search for Nan, when you get into the chat, you will find me and you will be able to chat directly with me. Feel free to reach out if you're having any difficulties or have any questions regarding how the event works in regards to ACHE. Before we begin, let me just go through my notes real quick here. I do want to let you know that we are recording. That will be available in about 2 business days, and it is going to be posted on the LMS. So when you go to your courses on that's your ACHE, you'll be able to see the recording in a couple of business days. So feel free to go ahead and look for that. Because we have such a large group tonight, I would like you all to just go ahead and use the chat for conversation, or if you're adding to something, save your questions until the end. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, and at that time, we're going to say, okay, the chat's now open to put your questions in, so we can have you put them in there. We feel that'll be a little bit easier with such a large group. So go ahead and feel free to comment on what the panelist and the moderator are discussing, but keep those questions in mind so that you can go ahead and ask them at the end when we do the Q&A section. You will be eligible for 1.5 hours of ACHE virtual interactive education credit. That does post in about 2 weeks. Same place as you'll find the link for the recording in the LMS. Again, you do need to be present for the entire event, so please make sure you stay online with us and join us here for the entire event. Okay, the evaluation link, I will put that in numerous times. Do not feel you have to grab that right away, but you will see an evaluation link. That is so important. We really want to make sure that you complete that, so we will go ahead and have that in the chat as well, and I will put it in the chat at the very, very, very end and stay online so you guys can grab it then as well. Okay, I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Carl Marie Menman, who's going to get us started. And again, reach out to me in the chat if you need anything. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Nan. Good evening and welcome everyone to our session for this evening. My name is Carl Marie Memnon, and I'm the president for Healthcare Leaders of New York, HLNY, the local American College of Healthcare Executive, ACHE chapter. I'm so happy to have you all here this evening. HLNY represents over 1,700 members in the New York metropolitan area, providing access to networking, education, mentoring, and career development. Our mission is to advance healthcare leadership and management excellence through professional enrichment and continuing education of our members. In this virtual session, you will learn all about administrative fellowship roles in the healthcare industry. This session will provide a high-level overview of the application process, pros and cons of becoming an administrative fellow, key advice for those wishing to pursue those coveted roles, and so much more. Next slide, please. Our moderator for this evening will be Zach Almer, and serving as panelists for this discussion are Daphne Lloyd, Catherine Sanchez, and Lauren Williams. They will each introduce themselves, and I will place their LinkedIn information in the chat. With that, I'll turn it over to Zach. Zach?
Thank you, Carl Marie. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm really, really excited on behalf of our panel to have you here tonight. This is a topic that, in my 10 plus years being in healthcare, I've never seen one time discussed at length before. It's a really, really important and critical job that people have and apply for in order to learn the skills you need to be able to work effectively in a healthcare setting. And so we put together a very great mix of panelists from different organizations with very different backgrounds. And we're really excited to have them talk more about their experiences with you soon. Before we get started, wanted to get a couple of housekeeping things out of the way. I'll explain to you about how this panel is going to flow. We're going to have a discussion between myself and the panelists. Each question will be roughly 7 or 8 minutes a piece. That'll take us about 45 minutes in. From there, that'll leave the audience for about 20 to 25 minutes of question and answer. And as Nan mentioned, we ask that you please keep your questions into the chat and enter them when we get a little bit closer to the Q&A time. A lot of times you may have questions that end up getting answered, and you may think of more things as we go along. So I'll cue everyone when it's time to enter them into the chat, but in the meantime, I appreciate your cooperation with that. Before we get started to have our panelists begin speaking, we'd like to offer a quick poll to everyone just to gauge where everyone's at from a demographic perspective. So Nan, if you wouldn't mind, please generating the first poll question. All right, question 1. Which option best describes the level you are currently at in your career? Student, early careerist, mid-careerist, or other, not applicable? Starting to see a lot of responses, which is great. We'll close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, it looks like most folks here are mid-careerists or students. There are also a lot of early careerists here, which is great. We'll go to question 2. Nan, are we able? Perfect, thank you. Question 2, how much information do you feel you already have about what an administrative fellowship is? None, a little bit, or you're an expert? And we'll close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Looks like everyone's heard of it for the most part. Some people haven't at all, which is fantastic. Some know a lot, which is, it might be our panelists that fill that out, but that's okay. But regardless, Nan, thank you for sharing this poll. All right. So with that, we'll get started. And we'll start with question 1. And Catherine Sanchez will be the first person that I pose this question to. What does an administrative fellowship job entail? And what do your days generally look like as an administrative fellow at a hospital?
Oh, thank you so much, Zach, for that wonderful question. And I love to start kicking things off. So usually a typical day as an administrative fellow is kind of getting involved with hands-on experience through rotations in different departments. So for Northwell Health, we have 4 different rotations, and you do each one is 3 months. And it helps you to understand the daily operations and challenges of working and engaging with managers and other team members. You get to have one-on-one experience, mentoring from senior leaders. And in Northwell, we also have a junior leader, and they all give you valuable advice and guidance on how to do your projects. As an administrative fellow, you get the exposure to also have a high-level decision-making and problem solving in any of the other projects that you're involved with. You get to collaborate. I think this is one of the biggest parts that I loved about my fellowship experience, being involved in so many projects and participate with many different stakeholders. So it really helps, and especially when you're trying to do process improvements or anything that has to do with quality measuring. So it really is a combination of all the practical experience that you want to get off as soon as you graduate from grad school. So you get the project management experience, you get the executive mentorship that you want, and then it also enhances your skills and your knowledge for the future leadership roles within healthcare administration. I hope that is good.
That was great. Lauren?
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of touch on how you can apply for administrative fellowships. So there's a few different ways that you can get in and into an administrative fellowship. The main way that a lot of people have heard of, have applied through, is the the portal, the NAFCAS portal. So that's a National Administrative Centralized Fellowship system. And that portal, you apply with a bunch of different topics. Each healthcare organization has different needs where some want like letters of recommendation, some want some essay samples, all will want your transcripts, as well as just why you want to do an administrative fellowship in the end. There's another way that you can apply for administrative fellowships, and that is through different healthcare organizations like job portals. LinkedIn is a great opportunity as well. You can go onto LinkedIn, type in administrative fellowships, and a lot of different options will come up, but also just doing a quick Google search, type in a healthcare system that you might be interested in, and type in administrative fellowship, and pretty much any time that you do that, there will be an administrative fellowship. So many healthcare organizations are now doing this because they see the value it has for not only building early careerists, but also bringing in young talent into their healthcare organization to help build up the system for the future.
Thank you. Daphne?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lauren. That's great. So leading on to that, the application process for fellowships are definitely very expensive. My biggest point that I would start is start as early as you can. Nan, if you want to pull up the document, me and the rest of the panelists have created kind of a timeline and some tips to help you on applying to this process. I know it can be very strenuous, so start as early as possible, be able to get everything you have that's needed. For example, any recommendation letters, any different like writing samples, your personal statement. So we are in June, July. I feel like you guys attending this session is like the first big step that you've taken in towards applying to these fellowships. I would say start creating your NAFCAS account, start generating a list of programs and specific locations that you would like to apply to. There are administrative fellowship programs all across America. Create like an Excel sheet just so that you can stay organized, because there's going to be a lot of components that you'll have to start submitting in. For July, I would start saying work on your personal statement draft, start updating your resume. A big thing is start updating your LinkedIn page. That is the first form of contact that you will have with interacting with different fellows and getting advice. So really make sure that's up to date, all professional. Get your transcripts in, get your recommendation letters in, standard cover letters. And another thing is start preparing for your like professional headshots. All these different organizations have different components, so start researching your list and start looking into exactly what components are needed for each fellowship to be able to really make sure you put your best foot forward.
That's great. And I think someone on this panel will share it in the chat just so everyone has a copy of that document. Manuel, perfect. And it sounds like just like any other job opportunity that you may have, it behooves you to do your research to find out where you fit and what works best for you in your time. Now, I also will share this panel was assembled in July for a reason. It lines up perfectly with the application window that they just described too. So we're hopeful that you guys will be able to take advantage of that. Moving on to question 2. Why did you, as panelists, choose to pursue an administrative fellowship over other job opportunities that you may have had? We'll start with Lauren.
Yeah, so I actually received my graduate degree before I started applying for administrative fellowships. I had just graduated. I was living in Washington State on the West Coast, kind of figuring out what I wanted to do, next steps in my healthcare journey and my healthcare career. And I started talking to some other people in my cohort of my master's program, and they were starting to apply for administrative fellowships. I was like, what is this? So I did a bunch of research. I saw the great opportunity that an administrative fellowship could present to me with developing my skill set, with putting me in front of key leadership. And I decided to apply to a bunch of different fellowships all across the United States, and just so happened to get selected for Maimonides Health as a Physician Network Administrative Fellow in New York City. So I picked up all of my stuff and moved across the country to New York City. I think that it gave me an opportunity to really expand my knowledge of healthcare, working in a completely different healthcare environment, Also, meeting so many different new people. It was a great opportunity for me to get to try out a new city, and I just so happened to love it so much, I decided to stay. So I highly recommend looking around, locally, nationally. There's really great benefits to both.
Thank you for sharing your story. Daphne.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I would say that I actually kind of knew that I wanted to do the administrative fellowship. Even before I started grad school, I had a couple of friends that were administrative fellows. I had done my undergrad at Boston University, and it was a healthcare hub, but I knew that I wanted to come back home to New York City, which has always been my home, and kind of get involved in that healthcare space. So when I had done my master's, I kind of researched a little more, gotten more in touch with the different administrative fellows throughout the years, and I knew that it was the best opportunity for me to kind of navigate how I wanted for my career to go as an early careerist and really give me that exposure to such a vast field with so many different opportunities. And administrative fellowship definitely gave me that opportunity this past year.
That's great. It sounds like networking really did play a big part too in understanding what you wanted and having people that could support you. So that's wonderful. Catherine.
So for me, I've actually been working in healthcare for about 11 years. And if you look at my background, I started as a transporter and I worked laterally through many different departments. So when I saw the opportunity to work as an administrative fellow, I saw it as in what values and what transferable skills can I bring with me into the leadership role. And I thought that this would be a great opportunity for me to develop those skills and keep paying it forward to the organization, since they also helped me with my education and being able to afford. And I thought that it was a great opportunity to also pay it forward to the other people who need opportunities. So this to me was an answer of like, where are my next steps? Where can I keep moving forward? How can I learn and develop myself so that I could be a leader within healthcare? So that's the reason I kind of pursued the one within Northwell, and I wanted to be within the organization.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate it. All right, we're moving ahead quickly here. So this next question, Daphne is going to take point in answering, but I'd ask Lauren or Catherine to jump in if they're able to answer it too. So Daphne, how does an administrative fellowship invest in you and in your long-term potential? And this applies to really anybody, but you being the person that's answering this question.
Yeah, for sure. So an administrative fellowship for me as an early careerist, again, as I had mentioned before, there were so many different opportunities. When I had taken my courses at during my master's program, I realized there's health tech, there's pharmacy, you can work within hospital operations, you can also work as a consultant. So I kind of want to really understand how I can navigate my career. So when I learned more about the administrative fellowship, there are different components that really pushes you forward in your career, that it gives you a foundation that normally careers would find like years down the line. For example, you would get individualized development mentoring from executive level preceptors. This past year, I got to be involved in high level meetings with different kind of executives at Columbia University, got to understand how the system works as a whole. And I also had like one-on-ones with these like high-level preceptors to understand the different leadership styles that they had and how I can best network myself across the organization. We also have every fellowship works kind of differently. Some of them are project-based, or for example, for Columbia, we had 8 different fellows working at 8 different departments that had like projects focused on each department. I know some other fellowships have ones that are like more rotational within the entire organization. So kind of understanding how that works together, how like the research side works versus the clinical side. And also the biggest thing is that investment that it gave me was definitely professional development and building a community. Especially like I got to meet Lauren and Catherine and so many other fellows when we all met each other at Congress. Fellowship really helped build that community that I know I'll keep on to for the rest of my career and really help me towards my bettering myself too.
And I'm just going to jump in as well. So my fellowship was a little bit different than Daphne's. So I did a rotational based fellowship. So my fellowship, I was placed in different departments throughout the year. My fellowship was a year long. Some fellowships are different lengths. And it was every 4 months we were with a different department. I think that that really gave me a lot of value in understanding the healthcare system as a whole. And it helped me learn finance, operations, marketing, some HR stuff, some work with our community clinics and inpatient and outpatient services. And I think that that really helped me develop my skills and really figured out what I had a passion for in the end. And I think that overall, the healthcare system wanted the fellows to stay with the organization in the end as well. So offered us roles, different opportunities throughout the system, which really helped solidify our passion and our drive to stay and really helped develop the industry and the organization as a whole in the end.
And I'll say something. So for me, Northville keeps investing in you is because they give you access to programs and education. So we have something called the Center for Learning and Innovation, where you can take classes on anything from project management to emotional intelligence. So you can always utilize the organization to learn more. The other ways that they invested in me was by providing me access to mentorship. And it didn't matter if it was the person assigned to me, but it was also, it could have been any other senior leader anywhere else. So anytime I wanted to learn about a process or anything like that, people were welcoming. And I think, you know, when you're trying to learn healthcare and really understand on a high level scope, it gives you that access to having this senior leaders to give you that knowledge and to make, you know, room to fail, but it's okay to fail because you're able to recover and then keep moving forward. So I think that's one of the best parts of also the fellowship.
I mean, how cool is that, right? Like, rarely do you have a chance to have a job where you can learn every different area of the way that a health system ticks. And if you don't know what you're going to be when you grow up, which is totally fine, getting the most exposure you can to all these different areas is the best way to do it. Plus, all the resources and opportunities that you have for meeting other people, which everyone describes. So, part of the reason why we wanted to put on this really, really special seminar for you guys tonight. So, moving on. I know Daphne touched on this a little bit. We'll start with Catherine here in the next question. How does networking play a part in obtaining your fellowship before you begin? And how does it benefit you while you're currently going through your rotations?
So networking is important as any part of your career level. I think, you know, one of my favorite phrases to say, and everybody will laugh when I say it, it's either you network or you not work. So the reason I say that is because you need to build those relationships with people and they can help you, give you advice. You can learn how to, you know, the experience of how does an application process work. You know, you ask for advice, you get paid twice. That's my other favorite saying to say. And then overall, when you start looking for positions or where to land, networking also helps you find those forever homes, I call it. And overall, networking has opened the doors for me to even meet people like Lauren, Daphne, the HLNY leadership. So I think it's very important to always network. And honestly, for me, I'll tell you a real story. So I know networking can be really, really scary. So I'm actually an introvert and people laugh when I say that because I really do mean it. My first networking event, I was there for about 10 minutes and I left crying because I was put in a state that I was uncomfortable. I was scared. I didn't know how to even start a conversation. But that's one of the moments you have to realize, okay, why am I scared? How can I overcome the situation? And I realized it's because I didn't know anyone. So the best way to get to know somebody was just by trying and making the situation as comfortable as possible. And one way was asking open-ended questions. I think this is really important when you're trying to meet other new people. And then when you ask these open-ended questions, you know, ask anything that that person be willing to share. People love to talk about themselves. I've honestly, I noticed. And the other part that I also do is I have, you know, shout out to my co-fellow Khadija if she's here, where we do this thing called networking one woman. and or if you're a, networking person, and they can help you. If you guys ever met How I Met Your Mother, it's like, have you met Ted? Is the same thing. Have you met my friend Lauren? Have you met my friend Daphne? And it really, really helps kind of take that nervous part out of it and help develop a more natural conversation. And then once the situation is less scary, it's easier to do. And the more you do it, the better it is. Shoot your shot. I know on LinkedIn, it could be pretty scary to message someone and you don't want to seem creepy. But the worst thing that they could ever do is ignore your message. So shoot your shot, network again, and then again, you're going to be really happy that you did it. And trust me, we're all scared in the end of the day, but it's okay to be scared. The best part is, courage is not the failure, but is it the absence of fear, but it's actually of overcoming that fear.
And I just wanted to also highlight the Administrative Fellowship creates this huge network across the United States with different healthcare organizations. I pretty much have, I can say, a friend in every state now that did an administrative fellowship. During ACHE Congress this year, everyone kind of came together. A lot of the administrative fellows did networking events together, and we got to learn how we could support each other because we were all in the same role together. I think that I created this vast network because of the administrative fellowship, and it helped me kind of overcome those fears that Catherine was talking about with networking. I got to practice with others that were in the same role as me, and we got to kind of build each other up together.
Yeah, I can also jump in. So externally, it was great. And I would also say internally, to be able to really make the best use of your fellowship, networking was the best thing that you could do. For example, Columbia, every month we had a kind of like all the fellows would get together and have a meeting with like different kinds of departments all over Columbia just to get to know them. And after, if I like really like the work that they're doing or anything that they had mentioned, I would kind of reach out, send an email, have like a coffee or chat with them just to get to know, hey, like, is there any project that I can get involved in? If there was any time like I would do any research or see something come up during like the Columbia Fellowship, I would reach out to them and see if I can really get that mentorship. I feel like the fellowship really helped me gain that experience and like being able to network. Definitely, like had Catherine said, I was very like intimidated by that, but the fellowship really helped me get over that fear and network to the entire Columbia community.
All right, so as panelists, please don't kill me because this wasn't on our prepared sheet, but we're doing so well on time that I thought of another question that might be interesting to the audience. So whoever has the answer first, feel free to chime in. Tell us a story about an experience that you had that's unique to you during your fellowship, an interaction, a rotation, something that you observed that created long-lasting value for you.
For me, was getting to know people who are just more than the senior leaders. For me, was getting to meet somebody who is just a publicist or somebody who is just a manager. And I think when you have to build these long-lasting relationships, you have to look at the holistic view of everyone, right? All these people are the people you're going to work with, and how do you create buy-in by already having those influential relationships? I think one of the important things is to let people see you as one of them, so that they see that they want you to succeed and they're willing to invest in you just like you're investing in learning about them and their job roles. One of the things I love working out in healthcare and being in the administrative fellowship is that you really do see how every single department works together collaboratively to really enhance patient care. And that I understand that, usually the staff is also should be your priority as an administrator and in servant leadership, because if they're happy, then your customers, your patients will be happy as well.
I think that my biggest thing that I learned was how to serve my community in an effective way and support my community. So Maimonides Health, we are a 2-hospital system in Brooklyn, New York, serving a population of over 2 million. in the borough of Brooklyn. So it is a large population that we serve. And so each has a little bit different demographics that we work with, different religions, different backgrounds. And so I think that during my fellowship, I did a lot of community advocacy and community kind of engagement, which I believe really solidified my choice to stay in the city of New York and kind of serve our population. I believe that I wouldn't have gotten that without this administrative fellowship. I helped do a robotics in the lobby event where we brought 3 Da Vinci robots down to our lobby for our community to come and play on. And I thought that that was a really cool experience that I got to lead and kind of develop. I brought local news there. The newspaper came. And so I got to meet those community members, but then I also got to work with our community-based clinics that we have relationships with in the borough of Brooklyn. So I traveled to neighborhoods that I thought I would never go to while living here, Sheepshead Bay. I went to Brighton Beach. I went down to Graves End and got to meet these community members and figure out their social determinants of health and how we can best serve them as a healthcare organization. So I think that that gave me a really unique opportunity to connect with my community and figure out how we could build each other up together.
Yeah, I can definitely touch on that. And it's funny because it actually really aligns with what Lauren had just mentioned. So when I had started the fellowship and working with my preceptor, she kind of had to ask me Daphne, what are some projects? What are some kind of fields of interest do you have? And in the beginning, I was like, I'm not really sure. Give me anything you have. I will get involved in with whatever I have. And then as we started working through the different projects, I kind of actually started piecing together a pattern in the kind of positions that I had taken and what my passions exactly kind of rolled with. So I started working on a project that was actually focused on kind of healthcare equity. So I worked in the cancer division, more so the research and administration. So I actually was able to piece together that all my positions before at different organizations were all kind of focused with a slight bit on health equity and how we can best serve the community. And my preceptor was like, there you go. So we kind of started implementing a project where we had patient advocates at Columbia University at the medical center, where I actually interacted with a whole nother organization, University of Kansas, who had kind of a very successful program. And we were able to see that the research that they had done, all the work that they had done could be implemented. And we actually just implemented that new program where we were able to connect our researchers with the community members and basically create a bi-directional communication channels that allows the community members to know what's happening at the research center and how research center can also be more involved with the community. And it was crazy. I was like, oh, I guess I was always attracted to this field. So that was definitely something that was unique to me and really solidified my thing that the fellowship was a great experience in helping me find my passion.
No, thank you guys for sharing. I mean, it's at the root of what we all do is helping people. So being able to do that at this level is a wonderful thing. Now, we've been painting a really rosy picture about administrative fellowships thus far, and it's really, really important for us to give you accurate information about some of the drawbacks about applying. This wasn't on the sheet either, but I'd like for one of our panelists to address what are some of the high-level drawbacks of applying or working in this role.
I'll go first. So in terms of applications, so just to be honest, NAFCAS, you do have to pay for applications to certain hospitals, so that can be a financial burden to some. Like we had talked about earlier, some healthcare organizations have stepped away from that portal program and are just doing it through their job boards. So that is kind of a financial strain that has been made aware to the administrative fellowship community. Another probably drawback to applying is kind of time management. So I applied to hospital systems and healthcare organizations all across the East and the West Coast. And because of that, I had to be really skilled with my time management. All of the applications usually close around the same time. And then interviews start very fast after that. So you have to be on top of like when you're going to be doing your interviews, also to account different time zones. Like I said, I was in the West Coast, so I had to account for the East Coast time and kind of have my schedule around that. So time management skills are going to be what's going to be key to helping you after you have applied to your fellowships and you start getting some offers of interviews, second interviews. Some healthcare organizations will actually fly you to their healthcare facility to check out their campus and then also do in-person interviews. So just as an FYI to those that are applying or have questions on the application, I would say that's probably the biggest barriers that I experienced when I was first applying to administrative fellowships.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. I do remember the application process once I did apply to about 10 fellowships, and they were all within the New York region. So all of them kind of started giving me callbacks, and they were all within the same week. I remember I was also like working full time. So I would have a meeting, I would run to like a conference room to take an interview, then I would have another meeting and then run to take a conference room. So definitely account that sometimes all of them would conflict, like the interviews and all. So really like know the fellowships that you're going to be applying to, because you're going to actually start having to narrow down your choices. Some of them might conflict, so you'll have to start picking which one. So really like look into it and research your organization, reach out to the fellows that are at those current fellowships, and kind of get like a feel of like what's your day to day, how was your fellowship experience, so you can really start creating like a solid list of fellowships that you have.
Yes, and what I would also say is to have clear expectations of what your fellowship experience will be. So that's why, just to piggyback off what Daphne is saying, because one of the things I always compare it to, if you ever met somebody who had a baby, they go through this immense amount of pain, and there's like, hey, would you be willing to do it again? And it's like they forgot everything they went through, and they're like, yeah, I want to do it again. I have another one. It's like, and that's how sometimes it is. Like fellowships are really hard work. You have to be constantly changing. So if you're in a rotation-based type of fellowship, you have to be flexible. You have to be adaptive. You have to adapt every time that you're moving on to a next department. Did you close out all your projects? It's a very high-paced environment, and then that's be open to feedback. So if you have to really check yourself and have your self-awareness and see, am I comfortable receiving feedback? Am I comfortable in always changing my environment? Do I need to have this routine? What are your expectations and how do you manage them? I think it's, like I said, it's the most important part of pursuing an administrative fellowship.
No, it's fair. And that brings us actually into our next question, perfectly aligns. We'll start with Catherine here. What was the most challenging aspect of your fellowship experience? We'll stick with while you were in your rotations. And if the answer is, afterwards, you want to talk about a story, that works as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, sounds good. So I think the first one was actually learning SQL. It was one of those challenging moments for myself because I like to take my time. I like to really understand the foundation of a process and then really get through the whole thing. But in this moment in time, I only had about 3 months in this rotation. So it meant that I had to learn SQL as soon as possible. So it really was one of those moments where I had to understand myself, understand, again, expectations, right? How can I be the best of doing what I'm doing and clearly get the output the way it's supposed to be, knowing that if I need help, who are the right people to go ask for help, who can teach me what I need to know, and being comfortable with failing and that you're not always going to reach the end goal the way you want it to. So what is good enough for now, and then moving forward. I think, again, I know there's a lot of opportunities for me to grow and could have done better, but I'm really glad that I was in a supportive environment that they said, listen, you're learning, right now it's okay to trip and fall and scrape your knee, but you got to get back up, get back to doing what you were doing, and you're going to be fine the very next day. So I'm very thankful for at least all those things.
Lauren?
Yeah, I would say Probably a challenging aspect that I really overcame during my fellowship was understanding my audience, especially in different meetings, different social events that I would do with some of my leaders, my executive leaders, and like the managers and directors that I worked with day to day. I learned that I could have more of a casual conversation with some of my managers or directors, ask about their day, what are they up to for the weekend, compared to something that I would have with our senior leaders, where they would really want to know more facts. They wanted the information to be clear and concise. And also, it was pretty much just business. It wasn't any, sometimes we would have fun questions, but it was mostly business that would happen. So that was something that I really had to learn very early on in my fellowship. I would sit in with our Department of Surgery at some of our leadership meetings. And I'm working with surgeons that have very tight schedules, that are needing to get the information and kind of get back to what they were doing. So having the correct conversation and understanding the audience that I was speaking to was something that I had to learn fast, and I had to be able to build upon as I built my fellowship as well.
Thanks, Daphne.
Yeah, so I would say the most challenging aspect I had was definitely in the beginning, getting put into this new kind of organization, an academic research center, understanding how these like high level executive like preceptors worked. You definitely get roped into these different meetings as a fellow. I would say for all the different departments, they kind of just put you on like, okay, we're going to put you on this meeting so you can get that exposure. We're going to put you onto this meeting. And I remember when I was sitting in those meetings in the beginning, I was like, what is going on kind of thing. So I like started taking a list of like acronyms, the different works that they're doing, what are the different responsibilities, how do they kind of fit into the organization, and kind of started creating a list every time I had like a one-on-one with my preceptor. I'm like, okay, like what's this acronym? So we kind of created like a dictionary that I had that I actually like gave to the next fellow that was coming in, on things that can help, and kind of like getting to know like the organization, meeting one-on-one with these different people that were in the meetings, and really understanding how the organization works as a whole, is like a biggest thing, just like getting used to it and seeing how it all works together.
That's great. I mean, the theme that I'm hearing from all three of you is really stay curious, right? About your colleagues, about your organization, what don't you know, and work to sort of bridge those gaps, which is applicable really for anyone's jobs at any organization at any time, but particularly so when you're first starting out at a new job, right? Next question, we'll start with Catherine. Looking back, what do you think were the key factors that contributed to your success in the role?
So some of them would be learning how to really advocate for yourself. Right now, when you start off a rotation, you're brand new to the department, so you have to kind of tell everyone what are your skills. You can't assume that people will just because you're a fellow give you the opportunities. You have to really show them like, hey, I learned all these different skills within another department. How can I apply those here? Right? You know, you have to promote yourself. In the end of the day, I always recommend this book to anybody that would hear it. This book called Brag Better, The Art of Promoting Yourself. Because I learned that sometimes you can be either humble or you could be modest, and we confuse either or. So, you know, promote yourself. What are your accomplishments? How have you overcome? And I think even your failures, how can you turn your failures into opportunities for you to grow? The other part of that I love, we have this journal club within Northville where we talk about different articles. And one of my favorite articles was Praise the Incomplete Leader, in which it shows that you have to be able to show people that you have these areas of strength, like you have these areas of that you can also improve, right? You have your weaknesses. When is the time to ask for help? When is the time? Who are your board of advisors? So I always recommend people always have a board of advisors that can give you advice on like what to do. And each person differently has like their specialty. So having that board also helped me become successful within my job role, because I knew if I needed a question about strategic planning, I could go to my mentor, Cynthia Khan, or I could go to my coach, Dr. Alice Bernari, or anything like that. And that honestly helped me overcome a lot of the insecurities I could have faced. And I am I think that's the best way I could describe that. I'll kick it off to Daphne.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing that I faced in the beginning was imposter syndrome. Kind of like getting put into this administrative fellowship, and I feel like no matter what level of career you are, you're gonna face this. Um, as a fellow, like I got put onto these projects where I had to independently manage from start to finish. I was involved in meetings with the CEO, the vice president, and sometimes I would look at their long list of like credentials and accomplishments. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like sitting in this meeting with like all these different people. But really, as Catherine said, advocate for yourself. You had gotten this fellowship, wherever you are in your career, be able to really take the step to get to know that person. Kind of network and reach out to whoever you can, have like one-on-one preceptor meetings and really like take it step by step, day by day. By the beginning, I was like struggling on how I can like really work this fellowship and bring it. By the end, I was able to independently manage whatever projects I had. And like I had no problem in reaching out. So it's just like a learning process. I still face it, but just being able to make sure that you can overcome it.
Yeah, and I think that something that I found as a key factor that contributed to my success is understanding my value. I also, like Daphne and Catherine, have a bit of healthcare experience, but not very much in administration. I've done some outpatient clinic operations as well as inpatient care management. But I was pretty junior and I was pretty junior in healthcare administration in general. So just understanding what I kind of knew about healthcare from my background, what I knew about healthcare from my studies, and the people that I met and connected with through different networking opportunities. ACHE has been amazing with that and understanding different roles. I think that that really helped create what I value and how I can value myself in a healthcare industry in the healthcare role. And it was important for me to build that value and kind of advocate for myself for different opportunities. Once I got an administrative fellowship, I could sit into these senior leadership meetings and they would ask me, as Catherine was talking about before, what do you want to do? I would be like, oh, this is kind of what I have some interest in. And I would love to kind of step into these different projects and these different roles so I could build up more of my value. So then I can continue growing at my professional kind of career and my goals that I see myself building.
Wonderful. Great answers. Thank you, guys. All right, so this is our final prepared question. What advice would you give to those who are considering applying for an administrative fellowship or a similar program? And we'll start with Daphne.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, start as early as you can. Again, there's going to be so many different components. Really understanding that different organizations have different requirements in what you have to send. Um, I think another thing that I would say is kind of be yourself when applying. There's a reason that you are sitting in this call. There's a reason that you are where you are in your career. Find your passion, really advocate for yourself, and see how you can best serve your best foot forward. Would be the thing like when applying to these like applications in your personal statement, really make that shine through. In your interview, really be able to like speak on like try to tie all your past work experiences, what's the common thread, and everything is like the biggest advice that I would give when considering applying.
Great.
My advice, sorry. So my advice would be to, back to piggyback off what Dabney's saying is right. You want to be your authentic self. And your authentic self is also recognizing that maybe your weakness that you think is actually your greatest strength. So, be okay with understanding where you want to be and then really look into the organization that really fits you as well. I would recommend look up the values of whatever you want to apply and do those values align with your values. Because in the end of the day, not only are they looking for you to be a good fit for the organization, but it has to also the organization has to really be a good fit for you, right? So I think that's one of the best advice I could give you. Make sure that you're always professional. Make sure that, wherever, remember, people are watching. So if you have a LinkedIn, that everything looks professional, that, and I'll kick it off to Lauren for her.
Yeah, I would say be open to being uncomfortable. As someone that moved across the country for my administrative fellowship, I really was unsure about whether I wanted to come out here. As I had said before, I applied to mostly administrative fellowships on the different coasts, the West Coast and the East Coast. And so when I got the offer to come to the East Coast, I was very nervous. I had to pack up all my stuff and move and create a whole new life and kind of understand the people that I was going to be serving. So I think that be comfortable with the uncomfortable when you're applying for your fellowships. Take a chance on maybe a state or a community or a population that you might not have thought about serving, and just go for it. And I find that you will learn a lot when you go to this new community, and you will get to have these experiences that you wouldn't have had if you applied to just kind of more local places or different things that you felt comfortable going into. So, take the leap, move across the country like I did, and find some new paths to really build out your professional career.
All great advice. So with that, that's our list of prepared questions. We actually have roughly 35 minutes of Q&A now, which is wonderful for those in the audience who have questions that we didn't address. So to reiterate the process now, we'll ask that you please enter your questions into the chat, and I will take them and address them to the panelists from here. So we have our first question that already came in. Is it possible to apply for administrative fellowships before you earn your master's degree, or do you have to have your master's degree in hand before you apply?
I'll answer this one. So you have to be in a master's program to start applying for administrative fellowships. So administrative fellowships, usually applications start a year before the actual start of the program. So most of the time you are in your first year, I believe, or you're going into your second year of your master's. And most administrative fellowships want you to be completely finished with your master's by the time that you start their program. I know that there is some that are more flexible, especially if you are in a master's program that requires you to have some sort of post-education fellowship or residency. I know that some healthcare organizations are really flexible with working with your school to kind of fill those requirements. But you do have to have some sort of timeline of finishing before you start the program with your master's.
And just to piggyback off that, I mean, really research whatever program you're interested in. There's so many different opportunities out there. I've seen some fellowships where they just required undergrad degree. So look into that. Recently I heard of the White House Fellows. I think that's a really great opportunity. And then there's other really prestigious fellowship programs like the New Haven, where it's at Yale New Haven, Cleveland Clinic. So just to piggyback off what Lauren is saying, like get out there, explore what's out to be available to you. I think if I were to give myself advice when I was starting to look at fellowships, I would have loved to learn more about these other different programs out there.
Yeah, I think I would definitely add to that. Look into each program, look into each organization. They're all really different in their application process. So get started on that. My biggest advice.
Thank you. All right, next question. How competitive are programs in New York City, around the country? I mean, as insiders, you guys are the experts talking tonight, right? What advice can you give us about what these organizations and programs are going through when they're looking at candidates?
I can speak upon that. I can start on that. So it is definitely competitive, I would say, not to scare anyone off. But we did have, for example, Columbia Fellowship. It did go from 8 applicants that were able to get to actually 2 next year. So there's definitely a change in that. So, but there's definitely still a chance. There's many organizations when kind of connecting with all the fellows in the New York City area, I found out there was one at like New York Presbyterian, Maimonides. So definitely reach out to every single organization. You never know if there's a fellowship there. So there's definitely multiple offshoots in New York City for you guys.
One thing about being in New York City, there's so many healthcare organizations, not only in the city proper, but also in New Jersey. Newark and New Jersey City have some administrative fellowships out on Long Island, up in the Bronx, as well as some in upstate New York. So there's a lot of different opportunities that you can, if you want to stay in the area, if you want to stay in the New York metropolitan area, there's many different options that you can look into that kind of puts you into this region. But as Daphne said, I know a lot of fellowships did drop their numbers this year. Maimonides had 4 fellows this year during my class. Next year, we're having 3. So there is a little bit decrease, which does create some competition. But overall, I think that if you're showing your true authentic self to the healthcare organization, they are going to be happy to bring you on and get to kind of work in the city.
The other way that I love to think about applying for fellowships is that it's a great networking opportunity. You get to be in front of a senior leader or somebody, a previous fellow, and it's your chance to even ask questions that could even help you. I think even when I was interviewing, I would ask for advice. I asked, how can I be a better leader? How can I, what can I learn? Is there anything else I could improve on? So it's really definitely not only like it's competitive, but try to look at the opportunities that this competitive program gives you. When you're sitting there waiting for your interview, you might meet somebody who might become a fellow, or you might at another organization. So that's something that happened even when I was applying. When we were at ACHE, I met somebody who was interviewing for the Northwell Health Fellowship, and they were doing their administrative fellowship somewhere else. But you never know who you're going to meet, if you're ever going to cross paths again. And if you build that relationship, they might be the ones to help you in the future. So you got to understand, like, there's so many opportunities. Don't look at the negative. Look at where's the potential for you to grow and what can you learn from the situation.
One of the audience members asked the question, is there an accrediting agency or body that regulates these fellowships?
So from my research with different administrative fellowships and actually working with a hospital system in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, helping develop their administrative fellowship, currently there is no regulating body that is sort of like the medical fellowships that you see in the industry. I know that a lot of healthcare systems utilize the NAFCAS group to help build their fellowships and also get applicants into their for their fellowship. But currently, I don't believe that there's any sort of regulating body that is making requirements for an administrative fellowship that I've worked with. So yeah.
Easy answer. Thank you. All right, this question will be for all 3 of you guys. What are your thoughts on joining a fellowship after having a little bit of work experience in the field versus applying right out of a master's program without any experience?
So, one of the common issues that there's out there, right? So how do you get experience without having experience? That's the reason why I kind of, also looked into the administrative fellowship, because it gave me that opportunity to be in different departments and actually get projects that I could work on and put in my portfolio. So when I would go into the next role, I would have these projects to talk on. I learned about the buzzwords, about, project management, as like, who are the stakeholders? How do you create buy-in with an organization? What does change management look like? And this is something that would have probably taken me longer to learn more about that if I wouldn't have done the fellowship. So that's why, I would say that if I were to do it again, I would do the fellowship just for the opportunity to learn everything. That's the best part of what they promote the fellowship is, that it gives you that hands-on experience that they really invest in you for you to become leadership within the future. So I think that's one of the the reasons why I prefer doing it after my master's.
So what I've learned is that the fellowship is actually very helpful in both ways. I know some of my current like co-fellows, they do have some experience like working in the field. So it was very helpful, and like the skills that they learn in those jobs were able to be transferred to what they do in the fellowship. But it is also very helpful for early careers like me, who had very like minimal experience. I was able to kind of like gain an exposure of like the different fields. And again, as I had like mentioned earlier, I was able to find like exactly what kind of like passions I had, what kind of fields I want to do. It helped me kind of like pave my pathway in terms of like what I do. So even if you don't have a lot of experience, I think it's perfectly fine. You will build that experience, really take advantage, network, see what you like, and you'll be able to really make use of that fellowship experience.
So I would say that each fellowship experience is also, each fellowship program is also a little different with who they choose for their administrative fellows. Some healthcare systems really cater to very early careerists. Postmasters maybe have like an internship or two, maybe some like very minimal job experience, and they kind of build them up to be the administrative leaders of tomorrow. But then there's also some administrative fellowships that want you to have some background in sort of healthcare, so that they can like more release you and have you understand what is kind of going on. So for my administrative fellowship, we kind of had a mix of both. So I was actually, of the four, I was the only one with a healthcare background. As I had said previously, I worked in care management, outpatient, and inpatient operations. So I saw the administrative fellowship as a way to expand my knowledge of it, the healthcare administrative world. But I also had the background knowledge that I could do projects a lot differently than my co-fellows. One was a lobbyist on Capitol Hill. So she had some background in healthcare policy and really worked well with a lot of our policy group and our payer relations team. One of our fellows did a career change, had done a number of years in a different industry and decided to go and do healthcare. And I think the administrative fellowship really helped him understand the healthcare administrative world. That was different from what his background was previously. And then our final fellow, he had done an internship, but he mostly did just his studies and had not really a whole lot of background experience in healthcare. And so the fellowship really helped him round out what he wanted to do in the future and kind of solidify just some opportunities he could see himself growing into. And so I think that every administrative fellowship is a little different. Some, as we said, are longer than others. Some are a year, some are 18 months, some are 2 years. So each administrative fellowship just caters to a different population, and it also changes year to year. Some fellowships want a population of fellows that have a lot of experience, no experience. I think it all depends on what they're looking for to build for that year and the different opportunities that they also have post-fellowship.
All right, great. Next question. I like this. Let's give a little bit more context here. How many programs did each of you apply to, and how many applications would you recommend someone submit when it's their turn to go through this process?
Yeah, I can start on this. So I definitely applied to a lot. It was about, I think I applied to like about 10 kind of. 10 or 11, I don't remember, but I did my undergrad in Boston, so I kind of wanted to see if I can go back to that healthcare hub. I believe I did all of Boston, all of New York City, and all of New Jersey. So there was definitely a lot of programs that I applied to, and it actually did come back because when I got to the second rounds, all of them were at the same time. So as I had mentioned before, if you do this process, really research the organization, because you're going to have to start picking and choosing which ones you want to interview at, which ones you don't want to interview at. I remember I had like 3 interviews in one day, so you be prepared for that. So definitely make sure if you do apply to that many, be prepared for all of them happening at the same time.
So when I was applying for administrative fellowships, as I had said, I really wanted to be in a certain like area, which is the coastal states. So I actually applied to 47 hospital systems all across the western and eastern seaboard. I thought that it would give me a unique opportunity. Also, I'm a big ocean person. So I think that of the 47 that I applied to, 20% gave me first round interviews. And as Daphne said, I started to having to kind of cut the ones that I didn't feel like connected with, or I didn't really like maybe their structure that they were doing for their administrative fellowship. So it so happened I ended up with, I think, second round interviews with like 10 different healthcare organizations. And I then had to choose from there which were my favorites. I did a big Excel spreadsheet, highly recommend organizing everything. It, I think, saved me from like overbooking myself or double booking myself. But I would say of the places that you apply, just expect from what I've seen in research, 20% will offer you first round interviews. And then from there, it depends on where you fit, how you felt. And you can start kind of weeding out your favorites versus those that you kind of not want to go to in the end.
So for me, I actually just applied to the one. So I'm very lucky and blessed that it worked out. But honestly, if I were to do it again and think about it back then, like I would have cast a wider net. I would have definitely applied for the other health systems out there as well, just to see where I could land. Because again, if you want to try, you want to see what's out there, you want to learn. So I definitely would have loved the opportunity to see what else I could have seen, I guess. But I'm very thankful that at least, things worked out. It's not always the case for everyone. So always make sure that you try it and try to see what lines up with what you want, like I said before.
47. Ooh. No, I'm kidding. It sounds like the theme really is cast a wide net and be like kind of like a farmer where you plant a bunch of seeds and you see what sprouts, whether it's applying to a million different programs, whether it's like Catherine talking to specific people. Either way, it'll get you where you need to go. Next question. Give us a little bit of insight here. So when you would rotate to a new department, for example, were other folks in the department understanding of what your role was? Were they welcoming? Were they willing to coach you? Please just share your experiences with us.
I'll start. So every department that I worked with was very supportive of me. They understand who I was. What was awesome about Maimonides is our first 2 weeks, I actually sat down with all 4 of the fellows with our different executives or directors or associate vice presidents and vice presidents that we might be going into their departments and kind of introducing us and saying, hey, these are the fellows. You're going to see them around. You're going to see them in meetings. If you have any questions for them or if they have any questions for you, just wanted to have that face-to-face interaction during those initial conversations. And I think that really helped to develop relationships with our senior leaders at a very early stage. And so they were able to give me advice if they saw something or able to help coach me through different scenarios or barriers that I was running into. And I felt like I could lean on them, especially when I would come into their department and kind of start from the bottom with a bunch of different projects that I was able to feel comfortable asking them questions if I didn't know how to get to something or something was kind of going wrong, maybe in my data that I was collecting. I felt like they were really supportive and they were helpful and really understanding who I was and helping mentor me towards the end of the project that I was working on.
Yeah, I can hop in on this. Definitely very supportive of mentoring an administrative fellow. I will say that Columbia is like such a big organization that sometimes when you entered a new department or kind of network, some of them did not know exactly what an administrative fellow was. So my preceptor was actually very wonderful and she would always like send the initial email being like, hey, this is Daphne. She's an administrative fellow that works in a department, and would kind of bridge the gap on like exactly what my role is. And that helped me kind of like build that networking connection. If there was ever like a chance for like, oh, like I want to network and they didn't understand kind of, a lot of different people across Columbia who understood what an administrative fellowship was able to kind of bridge that gap and help me in making that connection. No matter where I went, exactly like I had mentioned before, every once a month we had like kind of like sessions where we met different kinds of departments, the executives of those departments. And if anyone wants to get more connected or have like a project that they wanted to do within that department, they were very open in allowing us to even like sit in on those meetings and get an exposure to exactly what is the work that is being done at there.
So I could honestly say that my departments were supportive of me. So my rotations were a little bit different to usually what everybody else has had, because I was usually the first fellow that certain departments had. So for strategic planning, they were really supportive. All the analysts, they would willing to show me and guide me as I try to understand how to gather the data, how to tell the story, how to really look at the analytics and put it into the presentation, learning SQL. And then one of the things that I loved was the initiative of one of my friends for now, who had started the same time as me, but because she was already experienced in reviewing data and doing map info, she would set time with me and guide me and teach me. And that's what I loved about being in the department. It wasn't because of the leader saying, oh, we need to help this person, but it was because the staff actually took the initiative to help me grow and develop and give me the encouragement to be successful. And because of that, the next rotations where I was brand new to a department, I already felt the security of somebody believing in you and thinking that you're going to do great. So when I was in these new rotations, I would build the relationships. I would sit with people and do meet and greet so I could tell them a little bit about me, a little bit of what I was trying to do, what I was trying to learn, and what are the opportunities for any projects they could have. I mean, I would sit with people and say, well, what can I do for you? And I would say, it's not what you can do for me, but what can I do for you? I have these skills. Is there any projects you need help with? And that's what helped me even when I went to government affairs. And it was another brand new experience because now I was dealing with healthcare policy and working with John Flanagan, who used to be a Senate Majority Leader, and trying to understand what he wanted and how can I present presentations to him. And that was one of the best experience also as well. And I tell people, get to the unknown, go do things where you've never been before, because you get to set the bar. So I always laugh and say, listen, if I set the bar high, well, good luck to the next guy. But if I set the bar low, at least the next person will do better than me. But it provided me that opportunity to see healthcare from a different perspective of how does policy really affect the way that we run the healthcare system, not only linear, but also laterally. So that definitely helped me. He taught me how to stay away from acronyms. I think we use acronyms all the time, and it creates silos and barriers in communication. But again, these wouldn't have been learned if I didn't take that leap of faith into somewhere that other people didn't have the fellows, and truly advocating for myself, right? Just like I mentioned, you have to know what skills you have. You have to learn how to promote yourself. Don't stay in your comfortable area, because if you just stay with the known, then you're never going to see where opportunities for change and knowledge you can get. So that's one of the best things about my rotations, that they provided me the opportunity to be comfortable, to be curious, and welcome that curiosity so that I could keep on learning.
That's great. Thank you. And big picture, not all of us realistically are going to become administrative fellows, right? But whether you were one or you're interested in becoming one, it's really important to understand what they do and how they function so that we can work hand in hand with them, right? Next question, I really like this one. What happens at the end? What support do the programs provide to you to create pipelines for your next role after the fellowship ends?
I can start on this. So at the end of our fellowship, we did have like kind of like presentations where we had presented all the work that we done, all the projects that we had, who we worked with, our preceptors, kind of like a 5 to 7 minute presentation. And the audience for this presentation was all the department administrators across Columbia from multiple different departments. Before we had the presentation, we had sent out our resume as a chain. And so all our resumes were attached to all these different DAs. They were able to like refer to it as we were doing our presentation. We had like kind of like a Q&A at the end to be like, oh, like I love this project. We're doing a similar project at our department. Is there like a connect? Like I'd love to know more on like how we can work on it together, or if there were any open opportunities, they definitely referred for us. Any administrative fellows from past years, they were open to connecting us with the DAs that they work where. So definitely a great pipeline to opportunity. And also like, again, like I had mentioned before, it created such a great community of fellows in the New York City tri-state area. So let's say we had some fellows were applying to external organizations. They were able to connect with those people that work at those organizations and kind of be like, hey, like I have this, I had kind of like applied for this. Can you connect me? And every single fellow was always open to connecting them to their organization and being able to make sure that they got that pipeline.
So for me, the organization really helps you have that networking opportunity. So as you're going through your different rotations, they're also setting up meetings for you to meet with other senior vice presidents and then kind of tell them a little bit of you, what's your background, what's your story. So then when it's time to apply for your next role, you already have that comfortable to be able to reach out to anybody. So one of the things that I've done is I emailed, for instance, Dr. Salas Lopez, who works with the community health and population. And I said, hey, I really love your department. I really like what you guys are doing. Would you be open, if you have any opportunities in your department, would you be open to keeping me in mind? And I shared my resume, and then my resume got shared within her department. And that's something that I've done with other areas within the organization. They're super supportive because even if you haven't found your home yet, they're still willing to, okay, let's get you out there. Let's connect you with talent acquisition. Let's provide you with a career coach who's going to help you navigate the system within and then see where you can lead next. So at no point do you ever feel that you're going through this alone. You have somebody willing to, my program manager to like check up on you and make sure that you're okay. Like, how can we make you a better candidate? But again, it ends up to coming back to you as well. Are you prepared? The same things that got you here to the fellowship are not the same things that are going to get you to the next position. So you have to always learn how to adapt with change. How do you make yourself a high potential candidate? And what are the learning opportunities from every single obstacle that you're facing? I think that's very important when you're trying to navigate your career as well. Lauren.
Yeah. So my healthcare organization was great about kind of leading the fellows into opportunities if they were wanting to stay with the organization internally. Not only are we learning as an administrative fellow, but a healthcare organization is also putting a lot of like information and value into building you up to be their next leader in the organization in different aspects. So with Maimonides, being a rotational based fellowship, I got to work with many different senior leaders that got to see my work ethic, got to see how I did projects, and I was actually offered roles post fellowship that I decided to go externally. I came from a larger healthcare system in my previous roles, and I really wanted to go back to a larger healthcare system. But just because I did not want to stay with my organization in the end did not mean that they didn't have opportunities for me to stay if I wanted to. So I think that a lot of healthcare organizations really build you up to stay and really want you to stay, and will do a lot of different negotiating and resource allocation to get you to stay with their organization because they put a lot of time and effort. These senior leaders that can vouch for you and the projects that you did. And so it just depends on whether you feel that this was a comfortable fit for you. If you want to explore different options, I know some some people will also go into other roles outside of like healthcare organizations, to go into consulting, go into private entities. So it all depends on the person, their experience, and just what they feel is their next step in their career.
Great answers, thank you. So we're starting to approach time, and unfortunately won't be able to answer all of everyone's questions that remain, but there's one final question that I'll pose to each of you, and I'd like to allocate 2 minutes to each of you to answer it. The question is, if you had not gotten into the administrative fellowship that you had started, what other options would you have considered or pursued? Would you have applied? What was your mindset like, to give context to others?
I'll start. So, administrative fellowships are usually for early careerists, postmasters program. Like I said, most of the time people apply in their final year of their graduate program, a year before their fellowship starts. But for me, I actually applied after my master's. So I was looking at different avenues of healthcare administration that I could have gone into. And I've just found that administrative fellowship would really help well round me in the administrative field with understanding different departments, different aspects of healthcare that I didn't get from my day-to-day work. Not to say that I didn't also apply to jobs outside of administrative fellowships, but a lot of project management roles, program manager roles, and I just saw the value that administrative fellowship had in the end, so I decided to pursue that path. But there's definitely different options that I thought about since I had already graduated when I applied for administrative fellowships. I was kind of weighing the different options and which would take me on the best career path and build me professionally.
I can speak on this. So I would say, so when I was doing my master's, I was also working full time. And when I was finishing up my, when I was going to apply for fellowships, they also had offered me to like promote me to another like role that would be higher up than the role I had previously. And I guess like for me, both would have worked out where I could have like continued and taken this fellowship, or I also could have done like another year and taken on that role and then maybe reapply. I just saw such high potential with administrative fellowship. I was definitely unsure on like exactly what pathway I wanted to go towards like the healthcare career. And this fellowship definitely like opened up like new kinds of pathways that I can do and kind of gave me exposure that I would not really receive like years down the line. So I think it was very beneficial where I definitely would have reapplied the following year.
Yeah, for me, the fellowship was a leap of faith. When I first told my mentor that I wanted to apply for administrative fellowship, the first thing she said to me is like, those are really competitive, right? And I always say that ignorance is bliss because I said, well, why not? I mean, I'll give it a shot. I think I could be a good fit. And I'll see from there. So when I applied for the administrative fellowship, I just put it as in like, let's see what happens. If I get it, I get it. And if I don't, that's okay. Because I did something and I can sleep well at night knowing that I did everything possible to advance my career. And then I looked at other opportunities. I thought about, well, what do I like to do? And I like project management. I like collaborating with other people. I mean, if you never thought about it, think about what is it that you like to do? What are your interests? And then try to pursue that. Go ask, I'm one of those that goes to people. And this is how I landed an internship at the Center for Global Health, because my mentor said, hey, you like community, you really like things about public health. Why don't you talk to the Center for Global Health and see maybe they have something for you? And when I went there, I would ask questions that, well, what is it something you wish you guys had? Like, how can I help you? How can I use that? And honestly, because of all that experience of somebody willing to give me that opportunity, I was able to move on to the next opportunity and collaborate on many different projects that I added on my portfolio. So that's how I decided, like, I want to pursue something that lets me have that access, right? And I always say there's a difference between your career and your job. Your career, for me, it's healthcare. It's no matter if I get to be on a panel with all my friends or I get to collaborate on projects to help the community, at least I get to do what my passion is. My job, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be, if I work in an office, I'll answer phones. That's okay. But ultimately, you got to understand that your definition of success is what really matters. If your definition includes having a house and having all these things, material objects, that's okay. But if for me, my definition of success is to have my son and be able to provide him the opportunities that I never had, then I'm going to pursue that. And I'm also going to be involved with projects that involve change, that gives him the opportunity and his friends to one day succeed. So I just want you to keep that in mind when you're figuring out your next steps. Is it something that's going to bring you happiness? Is it aligning with those values of yours? And is it the definition of success that you want it to be? And then if I would have done it again, yes, I would have applied again. You know, one of the things about being resilient is that when you get knocked down, you get back up. You clean your knees, you know, whatever you landed, and you go back and you get on the horse and you say, well, how can I be better this year than last year? What were my opportunities for growth? And one thing I noticed is that sometimes we're scared of taking risks and we go for like sure things, but we're limiting ourselves, right? You should be able to be scared. You should have that fear of like, what if I fail? Because in the end of the day, what if you don't? You know, it's a silly question, but it's so many times when people tell me, but Catherine, what if I don't do this? I'm like, well, what if you do? What if tomorrow you end up getting the role of a lifetime, but you were too scared to go out of your house? You know, so I definitely would have done it again if I wouldn't have got it the first year, but now I came out knowing more than I did before. I probably made the relationships with people that were interviewing for the fellowship. I probably got to attend a panel that tells me how to apply for fellowships and make myself a better candidate. But there's so many opportunities that you can always learn and grow. And I think that's the best. That really is the aspect of being a fellow. Being a fellow is being a sponge, not only soaking up all the information, but also how do you, like show off that information to others and also invest in others.
I'd actually like to piggyback back on this, if that's okay. So again, what Catherine said, I do remember when I was applying to fellowships, again, very strenuous. There's so many different parts that you have to do, like writing your personal statement. I do remember there was at one point where I kind of like quit kind of, and I said, no, like I can't do this. Like I remember I went through like a spiral where I was looking at past fellows, their experiences. I'm like, no, like I cannot be there. Like that could never be me kind of thing. I like told my mentor, like, no, I'm not going to do it. And I think a week later, like I picked myself back up, got back on the application. She kind of like mentored me. She's like, you got this, like just keep applying, like you will get there. And then I remember like I had like, as I mentioned, like I applied to like about like 10 to 12 and I got into actually like 90% of them. And I remember crying because I was like, I had quit kind of thing. So definitely like believe in yourself. Like, hey, next year you could be also a panelist, helping mentoring the next year of like fellowship cohorts and being able to, I think my biggest thing as a leader is once you get to the top or as a fellow, like reach down and help the people below you so that they can also rise to your place is a big thing. So just believe in yourself and you never know, it could work out.
That is so eloquent. I would say, you know, it's funny because I will always put this song. This was my morning routine song. The Strouds could have been me because I'm like, I don't want to live, you know, in a fear of where could I been, right? So like, I definitely recommend it for anybody who wants like, you know, your motivational song. That could be your motivation song.
All right, perfect. Well, I feel like I just got a PhD tonight in this topic, so I hope that a lot of you feel the same way. I'd like to give a real sincere thank you to our panelists for being so vulnerable and also so prepared and sharing their stories and all the information that people need to know. To everyone in the audience, please stay connected with us. We're not done yet, so please don't log off. But again, thank you for your rapt attention and for your interest in this topic. So with that, I'll turn it over to Darren.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Darren Daraj, and I'm the president-elect for Healthcare Leaders of New York, the local chapter of the American College of Healthcare Executives. What an incredible evening. Thank you so much, Daphne, Catherine, Lauren, and Zach, for so much insights, so much knowledge, and really giving some inspiration to our members, our students, early careerists, middle careerists, everyone on tonight in terms of the fact that the only constant we have in healthcare is change. And in order to continue to grow and to learn and to advance, we have to continue to change, evolve, and be uncomfortable in order to then get to that next level. not all paths to success are the same. And our panelists tonight have shown us, whether you start right out of master's, whether you have some years of experience, or whether you get knocked down, get back up and try again. Look to new pathways, look to new opportunities in order to get to that end goal that you may have or that you envision. So thank you so much again to the incredible panelists, moderator, and topic. Next slide. Please join us at our upcoming events where you'll get the opportunity to meet these incredible panelists, moderator, and really get to participate, engage, get involved, and build that network that helps us to rise up the ladder faster. We have our 12th annual Past Presidents Boat Cruise, Tuesday, July 23rd. Our 4th annual Better Together event celebrating diversity, equity, and inclusion, Monday, August 5th. Our Fellow Advancement Town Hall, Wednesday, August 28th. Our 8th annual Mini Congress, Thursday, September 26th. Our annual Frank Camerano Memorial Dinner and Lecture, Tuesday, November 19th, and closing out our year with our annual holiday party, Tuesday, December 3rd. We truly hope to see you all there. Save the date, and we look forward to seeing you. Next slide. And as always, we couldn't do what we do without the incredible support, mentorship, guidance, and continued help from our sponsors. Thank you so much to our Platinum, Gold, Silver, Friends of HLNY, and all of our affiliates and sponsors for supporting the mission and helping us add value back to our membership. I want to now pass it back over to our ACHE colleague, Nan, to help close us out.
Okay, I'm going to come off mute now, and I'm not going to keep everybody long. Let me just real quickly here. I guess going to have me be the big spotlight here. So anyways, thank you, everyone. Great session. I very much enjoyed it. Again, on behalf of ACHE, I do want to thank our moderator and our panelists and our chapter and all of you for joining us this evening. Again, we did record, so you are more than welcome to look for that recording when you go to my ACHE in the LMS, and you will find the recording there in about 2 business days. Again, your credits or your virtual interactive education credits will post in about 2 weeks. I'm going to go ahead and put that link in the chat again. The evaluation link is also found on the LMS, but I'm going to go ahead and put it here in the chat. You can grab that real quick. I'm going to keep it there, and I'll put it in there again once I stop recording. But I really just quick want to say it concludes our session, which is copyrighted in 2024 by the American College of Healthcare Executives. All rights are reserved. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you. Have a good night.